right, we got attorney Richard Alexander in studio. I love it when you come back in. You've always got these great updates to the laws and things happening out there, Richard.
Oh, thanks, Brandon. I missed this so much. I'm really happy to be back here.
Yeah, first time back in studio.
About 3 months.
Yeah,
is it?
It's been a while.
No, it's been a while, man. But I love coming here. I love meeting you, meeting everybody associated with the, getting the word out. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. So we got little plastic plexiglass between us now, but hey,
the new norm.
It's a step forward. We're back in studio and making things happen. And so let's jump right into it. I appreciate you bringing these updates. Everybody's busy out there, and you're in the law. You're actually one of these trial attorneys that show up and go to court when you're allowed to. Now you can't for doing Zooms. But
yeah, the ultimate irony of that. I want to go to court and I can't.
Yeah, exactly. I'm taking you to court. Well, you got to wait for COVID.
You got to wait for everything. Yeah.
So tell us what some of the updates. What are you seeing?
Well, there were 21 bills signed into law by Governor DeSantis recently, about several days ago. I think it was on I think it was the 18th when he signed into law, which go into effect July 1st. And some of the laws are, not necessarily worth talking about. They just address some things. But the three that I wanted to bring to the attention is, first, let's start off with the little one first, is evidently now that poaching or killing black bears will be a crime in the state of Florida when you do it out of season. I didn't know this, but evidently, the gallbladder is somewhat of an aphrodisiac.
Huh.
And people were killing black bears for that, for the bile.
Wow.
And I had no idea.
Like oysters?
I didn't know it was a problem.
I didn't know it was either.
But evidently it was enough to make it a crime now in the state of Florida.
Well, let me ask you. I mean, I thought poaching was a crime. What did they do? Up the ante on the crime?
Well, they made it a crime. So evidently before it was quite possibly a fine, a civil citation type thing. Now they'll not only file criminal charges against you, but you can also have your license revoked by the Game Commission for 3 years.
Wow.
So it's pretty serious.
Fish and Wildlife, by the way, we had down in my hometown, one of my friends he got killed. He got murdered. He was on the job. Julian. His name's Julian. And it's all over Facebook, of course, with, Sheriff Whidden being, my cousin is the sheriff of Hendry County. But speaking of, Fish and Wildlife, it made it pop up in my mind. He was, a black officer. He was actually adopted by friends of mine. Played football with them. But anyways, long story short, to the point of, these Fish and Wildlife officers are risking their lives. He walked up on somebody that he thought was doing something. They turned around, he shot him, killed him. Kid was only 30 years old.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yep, happened down in Hendry County.
Was this recent?
Yeah, very recent. Yeah, last week. They just had the funeral yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, they don't get a lot of press, and that's probably to their credit, but they are certified law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
In the state of Florida. So, wow. I didn't know.
So Fish and Wildlife can't kill black bear.
Wow.
Shouldn't kill them.
Yeah. The other one was they actually upped the fine to passing a school bus from $200 to $400. What I thought was interesting about that is there was some pushback about, don't you think we're finding these people a little excessively?
Mm-hmm.
And the ultimate answer was it's $400 versus the value of your child.
Yeah, I got a kid here that might want to cross the road.
Right. So what do you think?
Yeah, it's challenging. That's crazy. And then Jordan's Law you mentioned too.
Yeah, Jordan's Law was in the Florida House and the Florida Senate for a couple of years. I don't know if anybody knows about this, but it was this little boy named Jordan, 2-year-old. And he was in foster care at the time. And he was doing very well in foster care. And at some point, they released him back to his biological mother. Mm-hmm. And turns out that she was arrested for the murder of the little boy. Mm. And, what came out of that was they found out that the system, the foster care system, it was just bankrupt. And what they wanted to do was, and I got to give credit to the people that were involved at the Florida House and the Florida Senate for pushing this because they wouldn't let go of it. There wasn't a lot of, positive response to getting this done. But at the end of the day, the Florida House was 113-0, and the Florida Senate was 40-0.
Wow!
So it was unanimously passed successfully. And what it does is, it addresses the one thing that was being the most problematic, is that caseworkers were getting paid $17 an hour, and they were responsible for 30 kids. I mean, it's insane.
Wow.
And so they cut that down to 15.
Right.
And they also, what they did was they actually opened up the lines of communication between, the Division of Family and Children and law enforcement, because a lot of times they just weren't communicating. And which leads to this, which leads to putting the child back in the home where he shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So, those were two of the things they did. Another thing they did was also implement more training and technique and protocol, procedure to get everybody on board to see, so this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, but training is definitely something that needs to be done, especially on the police side. They're talking about defund police,
Right.
sheriff's deputies. These people that are defending us, we call them. It's we take it for granted. If we have some kind of altercation or somebody breaks into our house, we call them. They come and they put their lives on the line. But training is one thing I think should be added and implemented. Let me go back to Julian's Law real quick, because that was the story. Jordan's Law.
Mm-hmm.
That was where the kid actually was drowned by his mother, right?
I don't know. I didn't see that in the medical examiner's report. I remember something like that, but if you read the medical examiner's report, this kid was viciously beaten.
Oh.
I mean, it's a really tough report to get through. I can imagine that he's going to be, the star witness from the prosecutor's office.
Wow.
Because the ME report, if you read it, the kid was just, contusions.
So he didn't
contusions. He did die.
Oh, he did die.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
Got
The
it.
mother's been charged with murder.
Okay, got it.
And the ME report is really graphic.
Yeah.
To think that this happened to a little boy,
Unbelievable.
a 2-year-old. Yeah.
We're talking with Richard Alexander, Alexander Law, TrustAlexanderLaw.com. Richard Alexander here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, longtime friend of the program and legal analyst here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. So yeah, something else. Tampa Police ambushed. It's something. It's one thing when we read all this craziness. We're tearing statues down across the country of people that are on Mount Rushmore. And when it happens right here in Tampa Bay, here's a quick. We don't have time to cover the whole story, but Tampa Police Chief Brian Dugan says his officers were ambushed this weekend when they responded to a call of a shooting near 15th Street and 26th Avenue. Dugan said when his police officer arrived early Sunday morning, they did not locate the shooting victim, and instead they encountered people throwing glass bottles at them.
Yeah. The bad part about that is if they get a call, cops are going to come. You know that.
Yep.
And because it's what they do, it's who they are, and they deliberately call them out in order to set them up.
Unbelievable.
And that's really the bad part about it, because they'll come out again.
It's so sickening. Yeah. And he quoted and said, "Nobody has our backs right now. I'm very concerned. You never know when a crowd is going to turn on you. There's an element out there that our officers have never had to deal with before."
That's true. That's actually, that was the chief of police that said that.
Yep.
He said this is an element that we've never had to deal with. And yeah, it's brand new, obviously, and they're going to have to find some way to deal with it. Because what I remember, they called out every cop that was on duty, which was approximately 100 Tampa PD officers that responded to the scene.
Wow.
Yeah.
So they were, trying to counter that attack somehow.
And that's the only way you can do it, is with a, show of force.
Wow. Yeah, they need to investigate this and get to the bottom of it. Who's actually behind it? You hear the stories of Soros or whoever. It's unbelievable. And then you see the pallets of bricks that are left at these places, and they're killing people's businesses and causing a lot of harm. But so locally here, local attorney again, we talk about work with the local community, collaboration amongst the community, small businesses. You're a small business owner, Richard.
Correct. Yeah, I am.
So people need to support local businesses, local attorneys. What kind of client are you looking for right now?
Well, like I always say, that the people that come to see me are going through something in their lives. They've either been involved, in a motor vehicle accident, because we do personal injury,
yep,
and or they've been recently arrested. So, unfortunately, I've chosen the discipline of law that when I see people, they're not always at their best.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everybody wants the same thing. They just want to be told that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the counselor at law comes in, where sometimes people just want somebody to listen.
Good point.
And just tell them that, listen, everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And
we're going to work through it.
I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, we're going to work through it. Take it one day at a time. I've heard it said also that whenever something bad happens, something negative, Tony Robbins, says loss, less, or never. Whenever you think about loss, less, or never, something happening, you may have messed up a relationship, something changed here, is that it's always worse right when it happens. And then, it's funny how a week later, 30 days later, it's not quite as bad as we thought it was. So we have a tendency as human beings to overreact in the moment and allow ourselves to kind of get sucked into that and focus on the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, you're talking about perspective.
Yeah.
Look, I learned something in college a long time ago, and I'll never forget. It was a Psych 101 class, and the teacher was going over, how to address things that happen in your life, negative things. He says, if you can assign a point system to it, he says, you'll be much better. He says, what's the worst thing that you think could happen?
Interesting.
What would you give 100 points to? Right, on a scale of 1 to 100.
Right.
And we all came to the same conclusion, the parent losing a child.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then after that, maybe loss of a spouse. But says if you can't get up to near that scale, it's going to be okay.
Exactly.
So
yeah, and what you focus on expands. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. So if you're focusing on negativity, you're focusing on fear, and unfortunately today we're being attacked by a lot of the constant negative news networks and some of these people. So that's why I say take a media detox on a lot of your TV stations and things of that nature as well.
No, I love that media detox.
That's right.
I love that.
More from attorney Richard Alexander. Stay with us. We're going to jump into more of his maybe some personal stories of where he's helped people, different things he's done in the community, and also we have a feel-good story of the day. We're talking with attorney Richard Alexander here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Richard Alexander Law, trustalexanderlaw.com. And we talked a little bit about a success story. Can you give us a success story?
Well, it's a minor one. It was a traffic offense, but I always think about justice. One of my favorite movies is Philadelphia. Remember with Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington, and when he's doing direct examination of Tom Hanks on the stand, he says, what do you like best about being a lawyer? And he says, well, sometimes it doesn't happen often, but sometimes justice is done, and that really is a great feeling.
Yeah.
And it was a traffic case. It was no big deal.
Yeah.
But what happened was it was an accident case, and so you have to go up in front of a county judge in the state of Florida, not a magistrate, and the law enforcement officer shows up, and he's in his civvies, and he comes to court with a video. A video of evidently the gas station across the street that caught the whole thing on evidence, on video, excuse me. And he comes in and he wants to start talking about what's on the video. And then he wants to introduce the video into evidence. And so just rules of evidence, rules of procedure. I objected. He can't talk about the video because a hearsay rule. He can't get the video into evidence because he's not the witness to do it. You'd have to have somebody from the gas station. Again, these are just rules of evidence. But because I knew that, justice was served and the ticket was dismissed. It's a small thing, but we get outside the courtroom. Now, this was completely unexpected to me.
Right.
Law enforcement officer tracks me down as I'm walking out of the courtroom.
Yeah.
And he taps me on the shoulder and says, how do you feel knowing your client got away with it?
Huh.
And I just said to him, justice was served.
Right.
And I said, let's get out of here. And I told my client, let's leave.
Wow.
But
that's a little weird that he would approach you.
I've never had that happen in 23 years of practice.
Yeah.
Never.
Huh.
But to me, this was somebody that had an agenda.
Right.
And he wanted my client to go down. Again, it was just a simple accident case, but he had an agenda. And anybody else, it might have been a whole different story.
Yeah. So I think you would have to introduce that where you could review it first. Right, and then it's allowed or something like that?
Well, you'd have to have the witness who can actually verify as to the veracity of the video, and then get it in like a custodian of records.
Ah, okay.
Somebody just can't come in and say, oh, by the way, this is what it is because I say so.
Right, right.
For instance, you could not get your driver's license into evidence. You'd have to have somebody from the DMV that is familiar with how driver's licenses are made, and looks at yours and says, yes, that's an actual Florida driver's license.
Interesting.
So it's just an example. It has to be the right person to get in a piece of evidence.
Yeah. We were talking about, off here, we were talking about an interview we did a couple weeks ago with Matthew Cox. He was the fraudster and doing a lot of radio and TV now and podcasts and writing a book, of course, but he committed $55 million worth of fraud right here in Tampa Bay. A lot of it was right here in Tampa Bay. Some was in Tennessee, but he was buying what they use, straw buyers. I'm familiar with that term. It's a fake buyer. They were recording false deeds and mortgages, but a lot of times they would use a California ID because people in Florida probably don't recognize what a Florida or California ID should look like.
Right.
So speaking about IDs and how that comes into play, but
it's funny. We were just talking about the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And Jordan Belfort called straw men rat holes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was the same thing. It was just getting somebody else to hold the money. But it was his money.
Oh,
but
wow.
he called them rat holes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So we have about a minute left here, 45 seconds or so. Give us a top tip, nugget of advice, parting words of wisdom.
Well, the one thing I always talk about is knowledge is power. I'm an educator. I've been an educator for 20 years, And I believe, I tell people all the time, listen, it doesn't matter what you think as long as you educated yourself on your opinion.
Right.
A feeling versus facts, then you can form an opinion based on the facts. But I tell people all the time, listen, knowledge is power, get educated. I would say the same thing about voting. I don't care who you vote for, just get educated on the topics.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll raise taxes on ourselves twice.
And we did that last time.
Hillsborough County, absolutely.
We just did. Wow. Unbelievable. Well, hey, thanks for coming in, Richard. We appreciate it. Support Richard Alexander, Richard Alexander Law, trustalexanderlaw.com. And we want to thank you for tuning into the show. Thanks to Doug Levi as well, Strategic Insurance, and all of our listeners, viewers, our TV show, our producers out there. Appreciate you. And we'll see you next time right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. But first, please go out there and consider committing a random act of kindness. Donate some time, donate some blood, swing a hammer for Habitat for Humanity. Do something kind for someone else. We'll see you next time. Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Contact Brandon Rhymes at 813-670-7372. That's 813-670-7372. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time.